Congratulations, you have now made it to the end of another section of videos. Guess what that means? That's right, it is time for another knowledge review. In this knowledge review, we're going to be testing how much you've learned about if statements and switch statements. Please keep in mind, everything before the if statements and switch statements videos is also fair game. We're just going to continue building upon everything we watch in this course. So, we've got 3 challenges for you. I'm not even going to call the first 2 challenges. The first 2 are going to be simple assignments. The last one, though, that one's going to be a bit of a challenge. So, remember how knowledge reviews work? Basically, we are going to tell you what kind of program we're looking for. At that point, you pause the video and then try to create the application we asked for. If you get stuck, try to go and research it a little bit. Look through some of the older videos if need be. Then come back and continue. If you just cannot get over the hurdle, simply come in here and hit play and watch us solve the problem for you. Alright, so with that out of the way, let's go ahead and just bring up a whiteboard just in case I need it. I doubt I will, but you never know. And start with our first assignment. Create a console app. Then, create an integer variable and initialize it to 5. Create an if statement that checks for a given range, 5 through 10. Make the range exclusive, meaning that the values 5 and 10 are not included in the range. So if we are within this exclusive range, write out to the console that the value is within this range. Then follow that up with another if statement. The second if statement also checks for the same range, except this time make the range inclusive. That means that the range needs to include the values 5 and 10. So in your simple console app, all we are looking for is the declaration and initialization of an integer variable to the value of 5, and then 2 if statements. They are both checking for a range from 5 to 10. The first if statement is exclusive, meaning it does not include 5 or 10 in the check. The second if statement is inclusive. It does include 5 and 10 in the check. Now, with that, let's go ahead and come in here, and we'll turn this off, this on, and this off. It is now time to pause and get to work. Well, they should be paused by now. This is that moment in time where we get to talk for a second or two. You ready to crack your knuckles, Logan, and get to work?
Sure, let's do it.
All right, guys, welcome back. Hopefully you had no problem figuring out that very simple word problem that we just gave you. So with that, Logan, go ahead and jump over to Visual Studio, and let's show them what we're looking for.
All right, like you had said, we're going to make a new console application. Inside of this console application, we're going to define the integer x, and we're going to initialize it to 5.
Okay.
Now, the first check you had specified was an exclusive check, which checked the value of x to see if it was within the range of 5 through 10 exclusive.
Okay.
So we're looking for x to be not 5 or 10, just between 5 and 10.
So 6, 7, 8, or 9.
All right, let's write that check. Let's begin an if statement and open up a parenthesis and say that if x is greater than 5 and x is less than 10, then we want something to happen. And as I'm doing this, I'm also going to go back and change the parentheses so that we more clearly block in the 2 range checks.
Okay.
Just like so.
Good. Nice formatting.
Now, in this case, to verify that this is indeed what is happening, we'll simply write out to the console, right line, and say
x is between 5 and 10 exclusive.
5 and 10 exclusive.
All right, very good. And then the instruction said create a second if statement.
Okay, here's our second if statement.
That check the same range, except make this inclusive, meaning that it will also include a check against 5 and 10.
And the easiest way we can do that with keeping the code easy to read is to use greater than or equal to, and then specify our range values. So greater than or equal to 5, and check to see if x is less than or equal to 10. So we'll finish off our parentheses, then our parentheses for the if. We'll set our blocking, and then write out, matter of fact, I'm going to copy the other one since it's very similar.
Okay.
Only this time this is and check for x to be between 5 and 10 inclusive. And I kind of move these over. I guess Visual Studio isn't so hot on the whole there being extra spaces, but that's all right.
All right,
space it out ourselves.
This is what we were looking for. Would you like to demonstrate it for us?
I would right after I put a read line in so we can see the results.
Probably a good idea.
I'll add in a read line, and now we can demonstrate. So x is beginning at 5. Let's see what we get. X is between 5 and 10 inclusive, which is correct. If x is 5, then 5 is one of the inclusive values.
Okay.
Let's change x to be 6. Now it's between 5 and 10, both exclusive and inclusive.
Very good.
And if we put it outside, like we set it to 1, we hit neither of the checks, or if we set it outside to 15, still missing both the checks.
Put it to 10?
If we set it to 10, then we hit the inclusive check because 10 is one of the included values in that range.
Very good. That's it. That's all we were looking for. We wanted you to get in there and actually use the AND logical operator. Yeah, not bad. Okay, now, for the next one, go ahead and just close the solution and make another one real quick, Logan.
Alright, let's make a new project. Discard the old, and this will also be a console application.
Okay, so let me go ahead and read this off first. Basically, what you're going to do, the reason I haven't jumped back over to my whiteboard, is you are going to translate the following code that Logan is about to type into a switch statement. The new switch statement must perform exactly the same as the code Logan is about to type. So with that, Logan, go ahead and throw up what you would like for them to translate.
Okay, here's the example code. First, we define an integer x and initialize it to 1. Then we do a check and say if x is equal to, let me space this out a little bit. If x is equal to 1 or x is equal to 2, then we want to write out the following. Write line and simply say x is 1 or 2.
All right. And just for readability, let's go ahead and throw those extra parentheses around each of these expressions. Good and good. All right. So what I'm going to do is just leave it right here for 1 second.
I'm going to build just to verify my own code and make sure that that is, in fact,
all right,
building
very
as it
good.
has.
So again, what we are looking for with this assignment is to translate this code into a switch statement. So basically, we no longer need the if statement. We need a switch statement there. But that switch statement must be able to perform exactly the same as this if statement does now. So go ahead and pause your screen on this guy so that you have this code in front of you. All right, and then out of all fairness, I'm going to hop back over here to pause now. All right, well, hopefully that was not too challenging. Let's go ahead and jump back over into Visual Studio. And Logan, if you'd be so kind, comment that out so we don't lose it, or just leave it there. Either way, doesn't matter. And show them what this would look like if it was written as a switch.
Okay. So we know we're going to be checking the value of x. So if we begin our switch, we're going to tell it that it is working on the value x.
Okay.
We'll go ahead and block in our switch, and then we'll put some cases down. Now we need to be checking to see if x is 1 or 2.
1 or 2.
So if we have our case 1, that's great for 1, but we need to also allow code to execute for a case of 2. We're just simply adding case 2 before we add any code. So now we have both of our cases defined. Now we can add in some code. We can add that console write line x is 1 or 2. Alright, and once we finish that up, we need to break out of the switch, and then we should be done.
That is it. That is it. Again, remember, the big thing here is utilizing the fall-through capabilities in a switch, meaning that as long as a case does not have any code, it will simply fall through if that case is met to the next case. So with our if statement above, the original thing that needed to be translated, we were simply checking to see if x was equal to 1 or x was equal to 2. So if either of those cases happened, we would print out x is 1 or 2. Now, to translate this over to a switch statement, we simply say switch on x. If it's 1 or 2, write this out. X is 1 or 2. So Logan, if you would comment out your if statement.
As a matter of fact, let me demonstrate with both of them shown, because then we'll see 2 lines. Before I demonstrate, of course, I'm going to put in a console.
That's true. We
line.
should have 2 matching lines. Very good.
All right, let's demonstrate. X starting at 1, x is 1 or 2, which is correct for both.
Okay.
So how about x is equal to 2? Same thing, both showing the exact same result. Now let's try something out of range, like 3. We see nothing from both, so they're both acting the same. Now let's try 0. And again, the same.
Very nice. So that is working without any problem. That is what you should have come up with. Now, for our final problem. And this one, as I said at the beginning, is going to be a challenge. So let's go ahead and jump over here and just temporarily bring up a whiteboard. I doubt I'll need it, but just in case. You may want to pause the video right now and grab some paper and jot some notes down. You're going to be writing a functional application in this challenging assignment. All right, listen very carefully. Here are the instructions. Create a simple console application that requests a name from the user. Send the retrieved name to a method called greetFriend. Make sure to use Pascal casing for the method name and camel casing for any variables and parameters that you use. The greetFriend method needs to determine which friend's name was entered and give an appropriate response. Friends that your application are aware of are, or hang on, let me rephrase that. Friends that your application is aware of are Bob, John, Mary, and Sue. If a name is entered that your application is not aware of, please let the user know. Also, the user should not have to worry about casing when typing in a name. Meaning, if I am the user using your application and I'm going to enter in Bob as my name, I don't have to worry about if Bob is all capitalized, if the first letter is capital. I can enter it any way I want to enter it. It's very important. Now, I'd like for you to create different greeting messages for each of your friends. Finally, Bob and John love to fish. If they happen to be the person greetFriend is handling, make sure to invite them to go fishing on Saturday. Oh, this is way too much fun. This one might require a little bit of thinking. It's not that difficult. You have seen everything that we're using here. Yes, we are getting just a little bit tricky by once again throwing in a method outside of main, and yes, that method is going to be taking in parameters or parameter, and it's going to be doing some work with it. I need you to figure it out. So again, real quickly, you're going to create a simple console application that requests a name from the user. It's going to send the retrieved name to a method called greetFriend. Make sure to use Pascal casing for the method name and camel casing for any variables and parameters that you use. The greetFriend method needs to determine which friend's name was entered and give an appropriate response. Here are some response examples. Welcome back, Bob. John, long time no see. Looking sharp, Mary. Hey, Sue. And again, these are just examples. You can use whatever you'd like as your greeting message for that particular person. Just make sure you use their name in the message. Okay? Now now I'm not even going to add anything else because that's just going to give stuff away. All right. Finally, if a name is entered that your application is not aware of, go ahead and let the user know that you're not aware of that name. You're only aware of Bob, John, Mary, and Sue. Also, the user should not have to worry about casing when typing in the name. Create different greeting message for each of your friends. And finally, Bob and John love to fish, and if they happen to be the person greeting that the greet friend method is handling, make sure to invite them to go fishing on Saturday. Now, that may sound complicated. Jot down some notes. Think about it. Work it through on paper first. Then start coding. We're going to go ahead and have you pause now and try to work this out. After you get done working this out, come back in and watch how we do it. So go ahead and pause now. Good luck. All right, and you should be back. So, Logan, if you want to go ahead and jump on over.
All right, and let's clear out from our last test. So I'll start a new project. We'll discard the old one, and this will, of course, be a console application.
Okay. And
inside of main, the first thing that we need to do, as a matter of fact, the first thing that would be nice to do is to indicate to the user that they're supposed to enter a name.
Actually, you know what? Do me a favor. Go ahead and put the structure in place for our method, because we know we're going to have a method there that's going to greet friend.
To be the heart of this program.
That's right. So let's go ahead and put that in place.
Okay. Let's begin with the method greetFriend. This will be a static method, returning void since all of the logic will happen inside, and it is, of course, called greetFriend.
Okay.
Now, greetFriend needs to take in a parameter. It needs to take in a string name. So there is name. I'll block that in, so we have a string name using camel casing, as you can see by the fact that the first letter is lowercase.
Precisely, and you'll notice that the method name, greetFriend, is using Pascal casing, indicated with an uppercase G. Okay? So where do you want to go? Actually, you want to go back up to the top now and go ahead and ask them to enter in their name?
Sure. All right, let's write out to the console. And we'll write without writing a line. We'll just use write so that the cursor is sitting next to this line, which will make a little bit more sense input-wise. So we'll write out something like, please enter your name. And I'll add an extra space afterwards so the text will just look better.
So basically the cursor is not going to be but right up to it.
Right, it'll be over one space over.
Okay.
Now, we need to get the input from the console, and this was, of course, done in Hyperion. So let's set up something to get to retrieve and store the name. I'm going to make another string variable. This one also called name, but in the main method. We'll say string name is initialized to console.readLine.
Now, if you broke this up into 2 lines, that's fine. We're just going to do it all on 1 line.
Okay, now we'll take that name, and we need to feed that name to greetFriend so that it can work on it. So we'll call greetFriend, and I typed that wrong. And it's still wrong.
There we go.
There we go. Alright, we need to feed it our name, so we give it name. But now you remember, we have to compare this in a case-insensitive manner. Like you were saying, we don't want the user to worry about having to have a specific case to have this work.
Precisely.
So what we're going to do is we're going to take name and have it return the lowercase version of itself. So we'll do name.toLower. ToLower is, of course, a method, so we have to put the parentheses around it. And then finish off the parentheses for the getFriend method call, and then add a terminator.
If you did not get this, that's okay. As I said, this third challenge was just that, challenging. Okay? Now, we have done this before. We did this in Hyperion.
All right. Now, after we run the getFriend method, let's wait for just wait for a line return.
That's right.
So that way any output can be read without simply disappearing. So again, we'll call on console. We'll tell it to read a line, and then specify no arguments. Okay.
So now let's go ahead and jump down into our method greetFriend and set up a switch in here.
All right. Switch, and then of course we'll do the switch on name because that's what we're looking for.
Okay.
We'll block in the switch.
And now here's what I want you to do. Before we put all the casing in, go ahead and jump to the bottom. In other words, right after the switch, and let's go ahead and invite, as the last thing we do in greeting a friend, invite our friend to go fishing. So right now we'll just assume that everybody's going to be invited to go fishing. So let's go and do a console.writeLine and say, let's go fishing this Saturday.
Let's go, yeah, I was right, fishing this Saturday.
Okay, let's go ahead and adjust the spelling on Saturday. Just take that T out. There we go. All right, so now we're just designing this so that the way we're going to present the logic, it's going to just make sense. You'll see. Let's go ahead and put our cases in now. So we'll start with Bob.
All right, we need a case for Bob. So we'll do case, then in double quotes, place in Bob, and then our colon.
And notice how we're putting Bob in all lowercase letters. This is very important because we did that name dot to lower above. So we know if somebody types in Bob and hits enter, it's going to all be converted to a lowercase Bob. So if we have any capitals in our case test here, it's not going to work. All right, so let's go ahead and do a console.writeLine.
Right line.
And let's just say welcome back, comma, Bob. So welcome back, Bob. All right. Now, in this particular case, I want it to make it out of the switch and down there to invite Bob to go fishing because Bob loves to fish. So let's just go ahead and put break. Excellent. All right, next case is going to be John.
All right, new case, this time for John.
Okay, and with John, we'll again do a console.writeLine.
Right line.
And we'll simply say, John, comma, long time no see.
Long time no see.
Okay, and we'll go ahead and end off the, there we go, and jump down. And again, John loves to fish, so let's just break out of the switch so that we then execute the right line at the bottom where we will invite him to go fishing this Saturday. All right, let's start our next case. And this is going to be Mary. And again, we'll do a console.writeLine. And we'll say, looking sharp, Mary. Because she's wearing this really nice suit or something. Yeah. Now, Mary's not into fishing, so it would not make sense for us to invite Mary to go fishing this Saturday, so we need to simply return from this method. All right, let's go ahead and jump down to the next case, and this needs to be Sue. And again, console.writeLine, and let's just say, hey, Sue. All right, beautiful. And again, Sue's not into fishing, so let's just return.
All right. We return.
Excellent. Now we need to make sure we set up a catch-all. So if any name happens to come in here that is not identified with the first four cases, we can say, hey, we don't recognize that name. So let's go ahead and do a default. And then we'll do a console.writeLine. And we'll say that name is not recognized. Okay? And from here, make sure to do a return, because if you do a break, you're going to invite this person that you don't recognize to go fishing on Saturday, and we don't want to do that. So we'll simply return back. Now slowly scroll back up. That's it. So let's go ahead and test this out now. So we'll make sure it builds and runs. Please enter your name. All right, so let's start out by entering in Mary. Enter. Looking sharp, Mary. Okay, very good. So now, of course, the application's not going to continue running. We don't have this in a loop, so each time we'll just have to run it again, and that's okay. So now let's invite John to go fishing. So John, long time no see. Let's go fishing this Saturday. All right. Go ahead and close that. Let's call on Bob, but let's use a capital B, a capital O, and a capital B. So Bob. Welcome back, Bob. Let's go fishing this Saturday. All right, because once again, Bob and John love to fish. So let's go ahead and exit out of this and run it one last time. Let's invite Jack. That name is not recognized. And we didn't invite him to go fishing, thank heavens, because we don't know who he is. All right, let's go ahead and close out the application. and that is it. Once again, when you listened very carefully to the directions for the application, the key things that you should have got out of it was that, one, there is a method called greetFriend, and it took in a single parameter. It took in a string, and then we were going to work on that string. We had told you back in the switch video lesson that you were able to switch off of strings, and that's what we're doing right here. In case it's Bob, John, Mary, Sue, and a default. We also set it up in such a way that we were able to utilize the return as opposed to a break. So we set up the break for both Bob and John because we wanted them to simply jump out of the switch and continue any additional code that resided inside of our method. And this is where we were able to slide into Let's Go Fishing this Saturday. Mary, Sue, and our default all simply returned back to our caller, which was back in our main method. So that's how the heart of the entire thing worked right there. And then back up here, we needed to make sure that when we read the line, so when they type something in and hit enter, we put that information over into a string variable, and that we converted that information to all lowercase because we didn't know how the user was going to type their name in. Could have been with a capital B, then a small o and a small b, or it could have been all capital B-O-B because their caps key was, or caps lock was on. Who knows? So we just simply converted it. Let me undo that right there. So we just simply converted it to all lowercase. And again, we've seen this before in the Hyperion project. We then sent that information over to greetFriend, where greetFriend handled greeting our friend. So it took care of a very specific task. And then when we returned, all we did was sat there and basically waited for someone to hit the enter key for the application to end. So there are your 3 assignments for knowledge review number 3. Things at this point are going to slowly start getting a bit more challenging with each knowledge review. If you're having a little bit of difficulty with this, well, especially with assignment number 1 and assignment number 2 in this video, go back and watch the if and switch statement videos. Just make sure you strengthen those skills. You are going to need the skills required to identify and comfortably write if statements and switch statements, okay? Now, if you had difficulty with this assignment, this was supposed to be a challenging assignment, and it may have forced you to do a little bit of research to remember how to do the to lower and the read line. But if you flew right through it, excellent. And if you didn't, like I said, don't worry about it. It'll be embedded in your head now. So with that, that is going to wrap up both this knowledge review and this section of videos. Thanks a lot.